Welcome to Common Ground, the national security podcast where we set politics aside and focus on the threats that impact everyone. From foreign espionage and cyber warfare to psychological influence and disinformation, we break down how adversaries like China, Russia, and others are targeting the American people and what we can do about it. I'm Shane McNeil, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts Amandalynne Davis and Logan. This is where the real conversation begins. This is Common Ground.
Hey guys, so I wanted to get together and talk today about travel. I recently had some friends that they actually went to Ireland, but they were discussing once they got there how they don't have a travel thing. And I think I travel a lot for work. I'm on the road a lot, and I have literally boxes set up for family travel, personal travel, appearance, what we need depending on where you're going. So I thought it would be good to share some of that information with the folks out there on how some of us travel and what we take versus, when we just kick back and let it go. So with that, let's talk about it.
All right. Yeah, I'm definitely less prepped than you are on this one, and I don't travel as much as I used to now that I have a desk job. Um, so a lot of my stuff is actually sitting here in my office, kind of gathering dust because I don't go do cool things anymore. But I do have like my setup, and there's some pieces that I still, if I'm just traveling personally, like if the family is going on a trip overseas, we're going to Europe, we're going to the Bahamas, we're going, I still have some basic things that I always take.
Hmm.
But then, I've got the ones where if I'm going somewhere I'm a little bit more concerned about. Given the amount of time that I've worked doing stuff with China and things like that, if I'm going somewhere in East Asia, getting kind of close to China, I have a few
Yeah.
things that I take. Like if I'm in Thailand, Cambodia, someplace like that. But other than that, I definitely think that it's important that you have certain fundamental things. Like I always have a travel router. I always have you know different apps on my phone that I make sure that I use. And honestly, that's the one of the biggest things that most people don't realize you could do is just pre-prep your phone with certain apps to make sure that
Yeah.
that's ready to go. It's not super complicated like a lot of people think it is.
I'd be
Well,
very interested to hear about that. Really
I think
interested.
I think the first thing you touched on is what's important is where are you going? Right? And what are you doing? Do you have a previous history working in the intelligence community on sensitive topics and you're going to an area that nation is in control of, right? So if you work China topics and you're flying into Taiwan, I would probably lock my stuff down. I might even just get new stuff and get rid of it when I came back. If you're going to Tanzania, not really sweating it, right? Like, oh, okay, cool. But I think the place that you're going's ability to exfiltrate data by force from your devices while it's separated from you in secondary, or hey, we're going on a family vacation to Cancun is a big difference in scenario, right? Your travel prep is very similar to loadouts for an operation. Do you need a vest? Do you need a low profile vest? Do you need a full kit? Do you need a little bit of this, a little bit of that? You've got to assess that. So I think those first steps are what's most important is where are you going? What is your pattern of life? What are you used to? What's normal for you? What do you do? Right?
Well, and I think a lot of people, when they hear that and they're like, "Well, I don't know how to figure all that out. I don't know how to figure out, what I need."
Hmm.
You've mentioned it before, and I think it's an important thing that people can just. There's a State Department website that has this
Yes.
basic information, right? Just go to the State Department
Yes.
site, see what they say about that country you're going to visit. Uh, do some basic research on, the amount of cyber threats and cyber crime in that country.
Hmm.
Things that the average person can easily look up. It's not complicated. It's not some sort of scary, like, oh, I'm not a trained spy, I don't know how to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think also, depending on where people are at and what they're doing, like what phase of their life they're in, they're not gonna understand the transition period of, okay, is this just a vacation? Do I really need to be super concerned about like the cyber threat where I'm going versus is it something else? And I don't think the State Department website goes super into detail on some countries that aren't at like high risk. But like Logan said, it really is situationally dependent. Like, what are you doing and how can you stay safe? Logan called out Tanzania. That's where I do a lot of my travels. I don't really think about the cyber end of things so much because there's a chance where I'm at my phone just won't work anyway. Like I won't have
Mhm.
any service. Other parts, absolutely, I have to be a little bit more cognizant of that because it's in a big bustling city. But context really matters for sure.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's for somebody like you, Amandalynne, you're not super experienced in this kind of stuff, but there are
Nope.
certain things that you can have just, for one, there are some things that you can have running on your phone here that just keep running. Everyone needs to have a VPN on their phone, right? And it should be a good, reliable VPN, one that allows you to continue accessing the sites that you like to access, and because that is one thing that a lot of people will experience, and they don't realize that's going to be a problem. They sign up for some VPN and they all of a sudden can't get on certain sites that they want because the sites they want are blocked. Just so people understand the way that works. Generally, when companies try to block VPNs, what they do is they block a series of IP addresses that are associated with certain VPNs. And you can jump around and try different locations to get around that. But honestly, whichever one it tends to be the more popular one at the moment does seem to be the one that a lot of companies will tend to be blocking. I've
Sure.
tried a few different ones based on my time when I was teaching this kind of stuff, and I've used Surfshark and I've used Proton and most of the major ones. I stopped using ExpressVPN for a while because there were some currents and concerns about its association with China. But I will tell you, a lot of those concerns were alleviated because, realistically, a lot of those concerns were based on a LinkedIn association between one employee and China, and it was like this whole like somebody saw something and everybody spun it. Yeah, I personally think it got overblown, and a lot of people that know what they're talking about think it got overblown. But I will say, if you are looking at one that's just dependable and will work wherever you're at, ExpressVPN is a great option. It is sometimes one of the more expensive ones, but this is very much one of those fields where you get what you pay for. Nobody should be using a free VPN unless it comes from Proton. That's the only free one I would ever use. And that's only free, when you're using the free one there, it's extremely limited. But that's the only one you should even consider the free option because, if we talk in data about if you're not paying for something, then you're not
You're
the
the
customer,
product.
you're the product. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and a VPN, when it has access to all of your data, what do you think it is that they are selling? So do not use free VPNs except for that one that but yeah, you don't have to buy the most expensive one out there. But I will say, having used most of them, my personal experience for non-work related things that I just need to protect my personal phone, my personal data, my ExpressVPN is a great option. It's easy to use. I can just set it and forget it, and it does, not only is my data secured, but also it has a pretty good ad blocker built into it as well. And so I have found that when I go to websites, I see a lot less ads, which is always a plus. When I even some of the simpler sites, it can cut down some of the crazy ads that you get inundated with, and makes it hard to look at the. So it's not only about your security; it can be just about life is a little bit more pleasant on the internet with this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that is the basic standard that everybody should be using. And if you are traveling, 100%, you do not travel without a VPN on your phone, a good reputable VPN.
I want to follow up with this because the talk around VPNs and travel, I mean, is pretty pervasive, even especially like in my generation, I found too. Like that's like the number one thing that people go to is how am I going to use the internet while I'm abroad? The I generation, if you will. Um, but one thing that I see coming up in the same breath is eSIMs. Do you guys have any opinions on eSIMs? Which ones you guys would use? Like the eSIM cards. I don't have a clue about any of those, but they seem very popular for travel to make sure that you're not getting like charged or something. Like, what is that about?
Well, I don't know what Logan's opinion on this one is, but I know, like, based on the places I have traveled recently, so if you're in Europe and you've got any kind of major American cell phone company, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, you probably don't need to sign up for any SIM. You are probably wasting your time. Your provider here probably has carryover agreements with most European nations, yeah, or Canada, or and your phone will just automatically connect when you get to that other country, and you'll connect to now you do want to make sure that you know what the rules are. So for when I travel, like I tend to go to London every year for work. When I get there, I get free data, but voice calls I generally have to pay for over a certain amount. So I just text when I'm there. I don't call, and if I do call, it's I make sure it's a VoIP. But I can
Yeah.
text for free from there, and my phone automatically connects when I show up. So signing up for a different provider is generally unnecessary for things like that. And when I've gone to Asia, what I do is I actually just keep my phone on airplane mode, hit Wi-Fi hotspots, and I just use my data and never actually connect to any of the towers because there's a
Yeah.
lot of Wi-Fi hotspots across Asia.
Yeah.
And then I'm also making sure that by having that VPN on my phone, I'm never concerned. I don't have to worry about, did I choose an effective eSIM provider? I don't think it's something that I have ever felt the need to do. And I think that,
Interesting.
it's, you could do it if you want, but I think that you might be wasting your time doing it.
Huh. Yeah, I've heard a lot about it. I have no clue what it is. I've never used one, never dabbled in it. I just stick with my VPN and never really had any issues, but I also never really had that many concerns with where I was going anyway. So, wanted to throw that out there. I've been curious.
Yeah, I think you can do that with, it depends on your situation, like Shane said. But on top of that, one last thing on traveling before you go, write things down. Don't just put it in your phone. Too often, people will say, well, I have this website, I have the hotel address saved in my phone. What happens if your phone gets stolen or you're separated from it in secondary and you don't get it back? Have that a printout or handwritten somewhere in your bag where the embassy is, who to call, where you're staying, right? Major numbers you might need just in case you need to use somebody else's phone if something happens. But um, so some of the other things I do is I have a travel router that goes everywhere with me. And what that does is it acts as an in-between from the hotel's Wi-Fi or whatever it's plugged into and generates a VPN segmented off network pass through for my devices and my family's devices. So when we travel, that's it. There is no connecting to the local native Wi-Fi. It's protected and boxed on that GLI net router that's about the size of, I don't know, it's a little wider than my cell phone. It's a little bigger, but it's not horrible, right? It comes with I've got a travel case for it. I take it everywhere. Everywhere I go, I plug it in and my phone automatically knows. My devices know. My family's devices are all set to recognize it. And there's no, your phone is reaching out to anything that provides internet, and they're likely to get grabbed by something that's not supposed to be.
That's funny. I was actually going to ask which one you use, and then you said it. The GLI net is the same one that GLI net is a great travel router.
Yeah.
I will say, when you talk, you've mentioned several times that requirement to do the prep ahead of time. A lot
Mhm.
of people don't realize that that's another thing that if you are going to do this, you have to prep that ahead of time. But the
Yeah.
benefit of that, by the way, is you can actually throw a VPN on that travel router at the same time,
Yep. Yep.
and you can double VPN, and that's one of those things that we teach. Lami and I, as you guys know, Lami is one of our partners at Sentinel and goes to school with us. Lami and I are publishing a book this summer on data privacy. And one of the key fundamentals that we talk about in that book is that it's about layered security. There is no perfect solution. People who are listening to this and where hear us talking about VPNs might have watched some of those annoying YouTube videos where they talk about, oh, VPNs are dead. There's holes in them. Yeah, every solution has got holes in it. Like you cannot find a solution for security that doesn't have
Correct.
holes.
There's nothing
Uh,
perfect.
exactly. But by throwing the travel router in, and one of what we teach, and what I've always taught people to do, is get a second VPN provider for that travel router, because different ones will have different security setups and they'll have different holes, and so by throwing one VPN on your travel router and then a second VPN from a different company on your phone, you just have closed some potential holes. And now on top
Yeah.
of that, you've got that thing between your device and the Wi-Fi setup. So you've got now good layered security, but it takes prep ahead of time. You have to actually spend some time looking at how you want to set it up, where you want to, how secure do you want to be, how much, because of course the more security you have built into it, the little bit more complicated it's going to be.
Right.
But there is a basic setup that you can have, and it's probably good enough for the average person. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you spend an hour setting that up before your trip, and you learn how to connect it, and you learn how to then you will have no problems when you get there. And it's all about that. It's all about the prep and the basic, and basic learning how your tools work ahead of time.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. On top of
Amandalynne,
that, Carrie,
yeah,
go ahead.
did we
What
blow
else?
your mind there with like how
I'm
how
like,
lost are you on this topic right now?
oh, like on a scale of 1 to 10. Easily like an 8, because like it blows my mind. I've never considered a travel router. That's what's blowing my
Mhm.
mind. Um, But again, it's like also the nature of the work and travel that I do abroad. I'm not on vacation there, but I'm also not working in like high level security settings either.
Hmm.
I'm like right in that in between. So a travel router to me seems first off, I didn't know that was a thing that it
Yeah.
can also, and I also, whenever Logan was describing it, at first I was sitting here, I was like, oh, it must be one of those large box things he
No,
carries.
it's tiny.
Yeah, I was like a World War II radio that you're carrying around.
Yeah.
No, I did not realize that it was that small and that accessible. Where
Let me
would
see.
you be able to purchase these things? Would it be like,
So
Amazon.
I get mine
really, Amazon?
from GLI Net.
Oh, you
Yeah.
buy
Yeah.
I
directly?
get, oh, I do, but just because there's so much supply chain issues as well right now in the world, I go straight to GLI Net. But
Hmm.
Amazon works. And they're literally maybe 4x4-ish. Like they're not big.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not
I've
a
actually
huge. Yeah.
my first one I bought was even smaller than that. It was like a little square.
Yeah, they've got
That one
teeny tiny
was, yeah.
ones.
They can
Now I'm
get
just
very
wondering if I can get
small.
it like sent in before I leave.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah,
You
you
know what?
absolutely
Yeah.
can. You
And
absolutely
get
can
a
have
get a
it.
case for it, and get the cables, and get a case that'll hold your cables and
Yep.
your accoutrement, if you will, for
Hmm.
travel. And makes it easy to go, and that just is something that, like Logan said, he keeps it in his bag, just and it becomes a habit. You toss it in your bag when you're ready to go on a
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
So I just
Wow.
sent a picture to the chat, which the listeners won't be able to see, but that's a picture of my router setup and all the cables Shane was just talking about in one.
Yeah,
Right.
Are
So
you
I've got the
serious? For
we will
that's
everyone
all
add
of
to
it.
listening, that is
that.
so small. I feel like
Yeah.
that could go in your pocket if you're wearing cargo
Tiny.
pants.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah. And I'm
definitely.
a
I
cargo
mean,
pants fan when I travel, so I
right.
got that ready.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I've got
I'll upload that
anchor
picture for everybody to
plugs.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got anchor plugs, I've got extra cables, I've got a pen in there, and then the router is beneath that. So that's an Evergoods pouch that I really like for travel and organization as far as the cable management goes. But that's my grab and go for cables and routers right there. That's it.
Wow.
I just throw that in my bag and off I go.
Yeah, see, I think that's really important to know, like, as people are preparing for travel, maybe to areas where they want to be more secure specifically, having a grab and go is very accessible. There's very few things that I need when I travel, so I travel very lightly. But whenever I'm thinking about security, I never thought about a travel router, and to know that it can so easily be implemented into
Yeah.
what I already have as a grab and go,
Hmm.
that's really, it's almost satisfying to know that I can keep my
Yeah.
security safe like that. Because I mean, I've just been banking on a VPN just working.
So
And
GeoINet has
that
whole
layer.
home router setups that you can use too. If you don't use your travel router as part of your normal network, then you need to update it before you leave. That's
Hmm.
like one of the only things. It's just like charging your battery, whatever. If you've got a travel battery, again, I use Anchor because it'll recharge the planet twice. But
Hmm.
like you've got to update it, or when you get there, you risk it not working, right? So
Right.
you've got to still do a little bit of prep, but the prep time is reduced to, I say, grab your router, update it, and bounce. That's it. I plug in the batteries, I
You could
check my
honestly charge
router,
it up, update it
I'm
while
off
you're
I go.
packing your bag anyway.
Yeah, yeah. As long as it's got the latest software on it, because you want to make sure that you're up to date.
Hmm.
But really, the most likely source of problem in travel with your network activity is going to be someone financially attacking you. It's not going to be industrial espionage or global sketchiness. It's really someone's going to steal your information and either do embarrassment, extortion, or some sort of financial, they got into your bank account because you logged into whatever, which again, I probably wouldn't log into my bank account from overseas either. But those things are what you're really trying to insulate yourself against. And it's not that you're going to be impervious. Like Shane said, every system has issues, but you don't want to be free chicken either,
Right.
right? It's you don't want to make it easy for them because that's going to knock out most of the criminal attempts right there. Well, I
So this
messed
is
with the guy, right?
Yeah, this is probably a very silly question, but does this router, this travel router, does it help protect against those financial attacks as well? Is there potential like on your phone, keeping that secure? Because that's the main thing that I'd be worried about overseas is the financials, because I'm using my card over there. And I let my bank know that I'm there too. So any transactions that happen overseas, they already know about, so they're less likely to catch it as fraud. Would this
Yeah, I
help
You
mean,
know,
protect it?
go ahead, Shane. You're more familiar with
yeah,
the
no,
details.
I was going to say it seems contrary to what most people would believe when it comes to making payments, especially overseas, and you know everybody thinks that using your phone for stuff would be less secure. You know, one of the most secure ways you can actually make payments wherever you're at because tap pay is so common globally now. Using Apple Pay, specifically Apple Pay, because you know there is a Google version of it. Now I will say, you know, when we talk about data privacy, it all comes down to, you know, what they're trying to sell, and we all know that you know everybody sells everything. Apple has been selling itself as more of a data focused company recently than companies like Google have.
Mhm.
But I will say, I personally use Apple devices because I like Apple devices. They're easy to use. They're but Apple Pay when you are traveling overseas is one of the safest ways you can do that because when you are paying
Yeah.
for something, the way Apple Pay works is when you tap your device, it actually creates a one-time use, you know, fake credit card number, which is what it passes on to that vendor. So let's say you tapped something and that device that you tapped for a payment was hacked, was, you know, vulnerable in some way. Well, they didn't get your credit card information when you tapped that. And so that's the safest way that when somebody is traveling that they can use. But people are afraid to do it because it's like, oh, it's connected to my phone. No, it's a safe way to
Yep.
do it, you know. So
Yeah.
that's I use Apple Pay personally for almost if it's an option, I use Apple Pay every single time because it is the safest way that you can pay for anything.
It's funny that you say that because I was one of those people that literally, when we got the updated briefing on this kind of stuff, and they said Apple Pay is the most secure way because it generates all that stuff like you just went through, I was in shock because
Yeah,
I had always thought of cell devices or the tap and pay as hugely tagging you, tying to you, and actually Apple, in my opinion, in a business model, is moving more towards the privacy commerce. And I think you'll see tiers in the next few years that Apple provides services of, you know, here's an iPhone for $500 if we get all your data. Here's one for $800 if we get some of your data, or for $1,000 you get the completely we won't snoop your stuff business model. I think they're
yeah.
moving against that. I think it's an easy target with Google's business model being collect and sell. So that's the way they're moving. We'll see if I'm right. But that being said, I had avoided using Tap Pay with just I hated it. I thought it was going to be horrible. But then when I learned, always be learning that it's actually really secure in the way to do it. Because like you said, it burns the card down basically every time you use it and gets you a
Yeah,
new one.
Well,
So
yeah.
speaking about learning, this is my first time hearing
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's
That's
shocking. I
crazy.
was blown
I
away.
didn't know they came up with other numbers,
Yeah,
the card
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
numbers. It's
and
nuts.
Apple's not the only, of course, they're not the only ones that
they're
do
not.
that.
They're
Most
not.
major credit card
But
companies today will allow you to create a fake number for your card if you want to do that. And it's a good
mhm.
option to have, but the simplest way, and I'm of the opinion that the simplest way is usually the best way, and the simplest way for the average consumer to do it is just to use Apple Pay. So that's my advice. It's especially if
Well,
you're an Apple consumer. Not that we are, by the way, for anybody listening, we are 100% not sponsored by Apple. I am just
no,
a fan of their
no.
Or
products.
anyone that is speaking
Yeah.
Yeah,
about any
or
products
anyone
today.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
But
not sponsored at all.
Apple's market share is in the high 80s, right? So if you look at money and marketing and touch points for retail outlets to use, they're most likely to push into a space because they've got that consumer power to be able to say, hey, most of the world's using Apple Pay. Why aren't you accepting it? And then another thing is not only does it burn down the card, your name's not associated with that transaction when you use it. It doesn't say Logan's Apple Card random numbers. It's all private.
Yeah.
The place you use your phone to tap or your Apple Card doesn't receive a printout of this is Amandalynne. She bought grapes and mouthwash, whatever. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
all just numbers. They can't the end user or the retail point of sale cannot then sell the information because they don't have it. Apple
Yeah.
does. Well, anonymously, whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
it's actually a
Well,
huge difference.
and the thing is, like, Apple's already knows
They
your
got
phone
it.
is there.
Yeah, they
There,
got it. They
there's
got it.
nothing. So you're not hiding from Apple where you're at.
No,
But and you're not your bank. Also, your bank knows you bought something there. So you're not hiding it from everybody. It's not like, oh, I'm going to be spooky and disappear off the grid by using Apple Pay.
you
But
don't want to do that anyway. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But you're limiting the amount of data that's being sold about you. That's all it is. But
right.
yeah, if you're traveling, or if you're I use it all the time. But it is a
I do.
great solution for travel.
Yeah.
In most of the world today, at least most places that most people would go when you are not, worried about going somewhere and getting shot at, Apple Pay is an option. So I would recommend that if that, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I think we're about out of time. You'll have to time check us, but I mean, there's way more to just my
yeah,
travel setup than that, right? Just the wiring alone, the what I take, what I don't take, what I leave home, stuff I clean out, you
All
know.
I've
yeah,
learned is I have a lot of prep to do
Yeah.
before I leave for my next trip.
Yeah. But
you
once
And
you
know,
do it
also sign
once,
up for
you're
Apple
done.
Pay.
Yeah. Once you're done, you're done. You don't have to really do it unless a
Right,
new cable type comes out.
right.
I take one of each with me at least, just because everything from the oldest cables you can think of to now, because you never know what device you're going to connect to, especially from when you travel in the more less developed parts of the world. Some of those things that are there still use those. But you can get as paranoid as you want. You can get a motion sensor micro camera to leave in your room so you can see if the house people are stealing, the maid staff is stealing from your stuff or somebody comes in your room when you're not there. It's what your level of comfort is. But I would say the travel router is a baseline for me.
yeah.
It does. I don't go anywhere without my GLI slate. I think
Yeah,
it's
I would
yeah.
say to our listeners, comment and let us know if you want us to go further in on this because I've got some other stuff as well that we can go into for, business travelers and stuff. I've got an app on my phone that you can actually take pictures of your room and then
Yeah.
you come back
Tells you what's
later, take a
different.
picture
Yeah.
again, and it'll tell you if anything was moved.
And if you're
I've
a
got
parent, you can take a picture of your kid's room, tell them to clean it, and then compare the two and show them with data why they lied. Right? There's all
um
sorts of things.
Yeah,
Oh
I've
gosh,
got
multi-use.
my bigger travel kit for future interest. Like I said, the listeners, let us know if this is an interest to you. But yeah, I've got Linux computers that I travel with when I need to go somewhere and I'm more concerned about security. I've got all the way up to like bootable hard drives that run off of
Yeah.
a thumb drive that I can run. There is an overabundance of possibilities that we could talk about, and we could go into a multi-hour conversation
Yeah.
on this. But I think for today, we're probably good on this conversation, and we have blown Amandalynne's mind and given her enough to worry about.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited now. Now I get to pack more stuff.
Not
Only a
much
couple
more.
things though.
Yeah,
Only a
not
couple
Yeah,
much
and
more.
things because
Yeah,
it's
it's not
gonna
as
fit
fit
bad.
my
in your
cargo
pocket.
pants. It's gonna fit my
Hmm.
cargo pants. I don't gotta pack it. It's staying on me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right. Well, I guess let's wrap up the conversation for this one today.
You
We
bet.
appreciate our listeners. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, that's it for today's episode of Common Ground. If you found this discussion insightful, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We're here every other week breaking down the national security threats that impact all of us, no matter where you stand politically.
And if you liked what you heard, leave us a review. It helps more people find the show and join the conversation. Plus, we promise to read every single one, unless, of course, it's written by a bot from Beijing or a Winnie the Pooh costume.
You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Blue Sky for updates, behind the scenes content, and more ways to stay informed. Got a topic you want us to cover? Let us know. We love hearing from our listeners.
And remember, national security isn't left or right, it's about all of us. Until next time, let's find some common ground.